Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Teal Tinted Glasses podcast, episode number 53. We're officially old. Tonight, we have 6 people in the chat, which is awesome, and I'm sure it's going to grow. I know it was kind of, I understand that in the Bay Area, football may be king, but you know what? I don't care. We're going to do a show anyway. So tonight, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. Well, not a bunch of stuff. I'm going to hit some stuff that you guys asked me before the show started. We're going to talk about some unsigned RFAs heading into training camp, and some teams have no captains, and I think that's interesting. Also, the new AHL TV deal is effing awesome. And so all that and more tonight on the Teal Tinted Glasses podcast. But first, introducing the panel. Hi, I'm Ian. You know me well by now, and you know this guy too, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Mr. Hockey Jerk, how are you?
So those of you who weren't able to be live and in color, you missed something great. So up until a few hours ago, Ian thought he was going to have to podcast by himself.
There possibility to exist.
Yeah, and then You Are Not Alone by Michael Jackson started playing through the TTG headquarters, and there I came, and you know what? It was great. We made it work, and we're here, and we're ready to get rolling. About 10 days away from the first preseason game?
Scary stuff, I know. I'm excited. And just actually on the topic of the preseason, I heard a good rumor. The rookie tournament that's in Vegas that the Sharks are taking part in apparently is getting streamed. So that's a big plus, because one thing that I was always really angry about when the Sharks ditched the Penticton tournament was that their rookie tournament games didn't get streamed. So I'm hoping this rumor is true, and I'm looking forward to watching the rookies face off.
Yeah, that'd be nice, especially when you consider how many fans there are who generally care about the prospects and the rookies and what's going on. And so if it is true, like you say, I think it'll be a good chance for some guys who are probably going to be in juniors or maybe even in the AHL in some cases. Guys get some exposure to, I don't know, just more people in general.
Right.
Go beyond the people who have tickets to those games or have paid streaming packages.
Yeah, people saying share the link when you get the stream. It's supposed to be on the Sharks website. If the rumor is correct, it will be on the whoever's teams are playing. It'll be streaming on their website. So you'll have to look no forward than sjsharks.com. So that's exciting. I'm pretty jacked about that because I do enjoy watching these tournaments. I mean, they don't mean anything, obviously. Neither does the preseason, for that matter. But it's still nice to get a feel for how your rookies stack up against some of the other teams, in the division. In this case, I believe it's Anaheim, Arizona, Las Vegas.
I believe you're correct. Yes.
Sorry, I got frozen for a second.
Are we live? Are we back?
Is
everything okay?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Frozen for a second. But yeah, I believe the tournament's Anaheim, Vegas, Arizona, San Jose. I don't know if the Kings were there.
I believe you're correct. I think this tournament may be somehow connected to another rookie tournament. I know it was San Jose, Arizona, Anaheim, and I believe Colorado who was doing it for a while. And I believe this might be some kind of successor to that. So it's nice, it's nice to, get some divisional matchups, especially, these are the guys you're going to be seeing the most out of the year. So, it's good to see guys that, as Sharks fans, we're going to have to see for a good while.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first topic I want to actually hit up is the Nate Schmidt suspension. I know it's kind of old news at this point, but I had things I wanted to say, and then it took us a little while to get on the air. What was your thoughts on the suspension, the length, maybe the scuttlebutt around it? What were your thoughts on this whole ordeal?
I think it was the right call. Obviously, with as strict a banned substance policy as most pro leagues have now, you can't afford to, you can't afford to go easy on some people. Unfortunately, in this situation, you do have to make an example out of people who are gonna break the rules. But that being said, given the circumstances behind it, how much it was, and at least from what I've read, appears to be not intentional. I think there's going to be room for some conversation about it, whether the suspension is reduced or rescinded altogether. But I don't think this is a done topic yet. I mean, I think back to when Nick Backstrom almost didn't get his silver medal for a similar situation, and I think appeal processes and that kind of stuff. I think ultimately we will see this suspension, like I said, reduced or rescinded. If Nate Schmidt has to serve the full 20 games, I'd be very surprised, just considering how, as serious as not passing a drug test is, very minor situation it appears to be.
See, here's the thing that, like, at first I was like, I was kind of on this. I'm like, wow, 20 games for such a small amount. But then critical thinking, Ian, came on. And the more I think about this, there's a lot of things that have been said, but I'm more interested in things that haven't been said. Now, obviously, due to the CBA, the league can't release the substance, and they won't say, they can't release anything based on the CBA. So it kind of gives the player like the opportunity to really have his people, really ratchet up the rhetoric on it. The thing that kind of surprised me, not surprised me, but makes me go, just a little bit, was that from Nate Schmidt's people, they went to great lengths to talk about the amount of the drug that was supposedly in his system, but they never said what the drug was. Sometimes you see like Olympic athletes when they get nailed for doping, they pull out, oh, I took the wrong Sudafed. There was nothing. It was a very strict emphasis on what the amount was, but no talk of what the drug was. And that, to me, raises a red flag, because if this is a drug where you can't, if this is a drug that isn't so easily explained, then you would think that they would, if it was easily explained, they would mention the drug by name and be like, look, it's this, it's found in this cold medicine, or, this and this allergy medicine, or whatever. But the fact that the Schmidt camp didn't release the name of the drug makes me believe. Now, again, this is all speculation and completely baseless on my part. I have no ins on this situation, obviously. But when I think about this, if it wasn't a big deal, wouldn't they tell you what the drug was? Unless this is a drug where there's just no logical reason it should be in the system at all.
See, I'm inclined to agree with you here, because I think you do make a lot of sense. But considering the NHL's policy, they can't disclose what it was that was in his system.
But Schmidt could.
You see, can he though?
Yes, I don't see why not. I mean, they can talk about the amount and everything else. I don't understand why. You know what I mean? I don't understand why. Like, I feel like if he wanted to, or his people could leak. I mean, people leak things that aren't supposed to get out to the media all the time.
Sure.
Through agents or what have you. I just feel like if this was a drug that could commonly be found in a lot of different products, then I feel like that would just help his case, right? But the fact that he's not saying what drug it is, just that he's not a cheater and it's, it's nothing that he purposely took. I don't know it. And maybe he can't. I'm not sure. Because I feel like stuff like this can get leaked to them, but stuff gets leaked to the media that shouldn't get there all the time.
Oh, sure. And see, the only thing that I'm thinking is like, because the NHL, like the NHL chooses not to disclose what it is. The only thing I can think of is maybe there's something in the CBA that, as a person being investigated, you can't disclose what it is either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that could very well be the case. I just feel like if it would help his case, then this, you could leak it somehow. I mean, we see stuff get leaked. We see players with no trades, leak that they want to be traded all the time. Mm-hmm. Agents are great. I mean, and again, look, I'm not trying to pass judgment on Nate Schmidt. I don't know the specifics. I don't know, all the ins and outs of this hearing or the process or anything else. It just, the way it came out to me at first, I was like, the same as a lot of other people, like, wow, 20 games for, this such a small amount. But I don't know. It makes me wonder. I mean, obviously his agent coming out, his agent, let's say his agent makes 3% of whatever he makes. And that's usually the minimum, right? Some agents make more, some, agents can make up to 5 to 10%. At 3%, this guy took $140,000 off of Nate Schmidt's last contract.
Must be nice.
Yeah. I mean, I would tell you he was the God himself as well. Right? Like the people obviously speaking up for Nate Schmidt. They have a thing. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights, they don't like it. One, they're going to lose a defenseman that, is a key part of their team for 20 games, and that's pretty significant. And, also, I mean, obviously they don't want to be like, well, yeah, we totally knew this was going to be we totally knew he was a cheater. And obviously, like, all the people that are saying nice things about it have to, because they're going to be egg on their safe, you know what I mean? Like egg on their face otherwise, right?
See, and that's what I'm thinking about, because like, let's say your assumption or your speculation, let's say it's correct, then how does Nate Schmidt, as a professional and as a person, how do you get past lying in the media about something really serious, assuming you are correct? You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And I'm not saying that, again, and I'm not trying to say that Nate Schmidt's guilty. Maybe the story goes as he says it goes. But I just think that, I don't know. I think you need to, I just think more things need to be considered before you jump on and, basically decide what, just give him carte blanche, like he's innocent. I think that there's things that, I just curious about the things that aren't being said. And I understand from the league's half, they can't say nothing because otherwise they'd be violating the CBA. And we all know that's not something Bettman's going to allow happen. But I feel with all the stuff that's been released from the other camp, I just think that there's some information that's been conveniently omitted that, I don't know, I haven't really seen people asking questions about. And the other thing with the Nate Schmidt suspension too, is the NHL's drug policy it's stringent, but it's a joke compared to like the Olympic. Like it's a joke. Like the drug that all the Russians got kicked out of the Olympics for, basically it's not a banned substance in the NHL.
Wow.
Just a little tidbit for you. So I mean, like it's interesting, like, with and we've had players come out too and say, there's definitely drug use in the NHL. You see guys that get a lot smaller once the Olympic year rolls around. And I mean, I don't doubt it. I think, wherever there's a chance to increase anything, I think you're going to see people, whether it's legal or illegal or, I don't want to get into like the morality of it, but I just think it's probably more rampant in sports, like where there's that gray area that gets ridden really hard, I'm imagining.
See, it's tough because, you want to take a guy who, to my recollection, has no, he's got no prior disciplinary issues, on the ice, off the ice, what have you. So, a guy like that, you want to take him at his word, which
for sure.
Because of that, it makes me think that there's just something in the CBA about not disclosing what it is. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe, and, if we want to dig even further, maybe Schmidt's, maybe his agent and the team and stuff like that, maybe they, okay, we can't disclose what it was, well, we're going to, that's all that the CBA says, so we're going to say everything else about it to prove our point.
And that's, what I mean? Yeah, and that's an absolute possibility. Again, I'm not trying to pass judgment. I just thought it was an interesting exercise in critical thinking, because I think that sometimes it's easy to listen to what's being said, but I think too often we don't look at what's not being said. So I just, if I helped you open your eyes to some possibilities, great. If you think I'm just a jerk who's talking out of his butt, also great because that's also true.
That's my job. Come on.
And also, I want Laurel killed it in the chat. Probably just ate a poppy seed, poppy seed muffin, and then tested positive for opiates. Could happen, I guess. Those poppy seeds are, they are like crack. Poppy seed lemon loaf, crack.
There you have it. Heard it here first.
Fortnite addiction. Fantastic. Another thing that makes this Nate Schmidt thing interesting as well, I think, is you look at the unsigned RFAs heading into camp, and I think that when you look at teams that are, having trouble with pieces, I think you look at Edmonton and you look at Vegas too, because you're already missing Nate Schmidt and you don't have Shea Theodore under contract yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and I mean, we've seen RFAs like this. We've seen them go even further, and they end up getting re-signed. But if I'm specifically if I'm any of those GMs, I'm starting to get a little nervous because as we alluded to, preseason games, at least for the Sharks, I'm not sure about other teams, but preseason games are in less than 2 weeks, which means your camp most likely starts tomorrow, maybe. So
I think so. Yeah, I think camp's open tomorrow.
So it's not something that you want to let linger, because then ultimately what boils down to is, even if it's just if it's not a big deal, it's just a matter of, we need to sit down and hammer it out and no big deal. People aren't going to see it like that. It's just all that's going to be said is it's taking too long. He wants this much money. They want this many years, and it gets spun, 10,000 times. And then, all of a sudden it creates a bigger problem. Like you recall, Athanasiou actually went to Switzerland and started skating last year.
Yep.
And that was simply from his perspective, it was just I need ice time, I need to stay sharp physically, and conditioning kind of thing. And it was spun to be, he's going to sign with, so and so in the NLA. Right. And I'm not worried about deals getting done, but I think as a GM and as a fan of those teams, you're starting to get nervous with training camps opening up real soon.
Yeah, because I think when you look at some of these other teams, you're looking for, especially some of these teams that are looking to have a bounce back year, or actually start their long awaited climb through the rankings. You look at Sam Reinhart in Buffalo, you look at Darnell Nurse in Edmonton with Sekera already out. Similar situation in Vegas. They're already down a defenseman, and now they're going to be, down possibly another. You don't replace defensemen of this caliber either. These are not, the guys that are out of contract right now. And I'll just go through the names really quick. You got obviously the big ones. You got William Nylander in Toronto, which is obviously the big one because Toronto's the center of the hockey universe, and this is how this podcast relates to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Thanks for coming. Good night.
Thanks for coming. Good night. Darnell Nurse, Sam Reinhart, Nick Ritchie to a lesser extent, although Nick Ritchie did have a pretty good season last year with the Ducks. Shea Theodore in Vegas, and Josh Morrissey in Winnipeg. Look, if you're the Buffalo Sabres, for example, you're a Buffalo Sabres fan. I mean, this is the year where you're supposed to start to climb, because I think on paper, if you look at Buffalo, you're better than Detroit. You're better than Ottawa. I mean, who isn't at this point? You're better than Ottawa, and you're probably better than Montreal too, barring a heroic, return to form by Carey Price. You're better than Montreal. Obviously, not having Reinhart in the mix, that's going to hurt them, and it makes it really hard to think that they, that they're going to move up, that they can make the push that they're supposed to make. I've been listening to a lot of different things. Buffalo, sorry. A lot of people are saying, this should be an 80 to 90 point team this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard to meet that projection without a Sam Reinhart in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, you're looking at these guys who are currently unsigned right now, and it's, these guys make a major impact on their team. I mean, you talked about Sam Reinhart, obviously, he's definitely flown under the radar in terms of scoring, but has still been one of Buffalo's best players the last couple of years. And, I know you've talked about it many times, but the year Darnell Nurse had this past year, there's no way that Edmonton can afford to screw this up, and, we're starting to get into that territory. Like I said, I don't think there's cause for concern, but I would at least start, thinking about some things. And, even William Nylander, I mean, if Toronto is really trying to make this glass cannon, model of building their team work, they're going to need as much offense as they can. And, Nylander again, it's an interesting case because he's been such a huge part of that team the last 2 years. But I feel like of the, the big three, young guys, him, Marner, and Matthews, I feel like he doesn't get talked about nearly as much as he should, which whether that hurts or helps him, I'm not sure. But, you got a lot of crucial guys here to their teams who are just unsigned. And, especially teams like Buffalo, if they want to continue to climb, or even, teams like Toronto and teams like Winnipeg, if they want to, keep their place in the NHL's, most talked about teams, they obviously got to get a deal done there. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. And, we see all the time, the first day of training camp, miraculously everybody gets signed. So, there's still time, but, it's something that should be started to think about if you're those teams.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know we were talking about this in our little chat with Kevin earlier today. And just for some insight there, I mean, the last player, I think when we went through it, the last player to hold out and actually made it into the regular season holding out was Ryan Johansson, and he didn't affect him. Like, he was the anomaly. I know Sharks fans, especially the Sharks fans that are a little long in the tooth, can go back to the year Nabokov held out, and that was a disaster season for him. I feel, though, like with the way the players take care of themselves, missing training camp is less of a big deal, because these guys, it's not like these guys come into training camp and that's the first time they put on their skates. These guys have been skating since the start of August, probably, maybe even sooner. So I feel like, as dangerous as it is to start the season without these guys, I feel like for the most part, with the way these guys take care of themselves now, maybe it's not as big a deal. And I think that's why RFAs can be a little more emboldened, I think, when you look at, because obviously look at their choices are basically sign what the team gives you or stay home.
Yeah.
And I feel like being able to hold out like Ryan Johansson did, get your deal and then come and tear it up. There's no reason any of these guys can't do the same.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a tough spot because, you think about back to that Nabokov situation, and, Nabokov was on record as saying that, with the benefit of hindsight, he never would have done that because it messed with his conditioning. But, you think now, like you said, conditioning and training, it's so much, more of an element in an athlete's life. I mean, even in the summer, you go home for 6 weeks and you do whatever, you play golf and you watch TV and whatever. And then, it's right back on the ice, whether it's in your hometown or, it's back where in the city that you play for. And I think too, these guys, these RFAs, yes, they can't play in the NHL with anybody besides the team that holds their rights. But, the popularity and the, I guess the strength, if you will, of like European leagues in the last couple of years, it makes, it definitely makes that an attractive option, should it get to that point. I mean, you think back, to Vladimir Sabatka, a few years ago, him and the Blues couldn't figure it out. And so he went and played 3 years in the KHL and, had a 1-year deal with St. Louis waiting for him whenever he came back. So, there's definitely options out there, but, we've talked about it before. And I even read an article today about Kaprizov, who's a Minnesota Wild prospect. He said, I'm happy with my team in the KHL, but everybody, obviously the dream is the NHL. And, you have guys who will spend 10 years in the KHL who still want to make it to the NHL someday. And so even though they're options, the NHL is obviously still, top dog at the end of the day.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, because the other thing too, I mean, the longer you stay over there, I mean, you still have to come back and, especially if you don't, I mean, it's worse when you don't sign the ELC, because then whenever you come back, you have to get through that ELC. You can't just come back and cash in. For these guys that are past the ELC, but even when you're past, I mean, KHL is only going to get you so much money. I feel like a lot of the guys that come over, they could tear up the KHL, and a lot of them aren't going to get paid the amount they would if they'd, put up similar numbers in the NHL. Like, there's still that bias towards what you do here and what you do there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I feel like we go through this every year. There's a handful of RFAs who, are unsigned by camp, but I think ultimately, there's been no public, snafus from any of these guys. So, I mean, for the team's sake and the fans' sake, I hope it doesn't become an issue, but, anything is possible.
Anything's possible. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I think that most of these guys, if not all of them, are opening night. They're in the lineup.
Absolutely.
But it's just interesting because it's just interesting to see so many decent names this far. Because I don't think we've ever seen this before. We've had players hold out. I don't recall ever seeing so many players of decent caliber, William Nylander, Darnell Nurse, Sam Reinhart, especially. Those are some key pieces of their team sitting out. So I think that's the interesting part. I think the interesting part is how many of them.
That's definitely a good point, because we've seen too in years past, when when it starts to get to that point where we're concerned about RFA holdouts, it's been 1, 2, maybe 3 guys. I mean, last year we talked about Athanasiou. You remember 2 years ago, it was the summer of Kucherov and Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
But then that was it. It was nobody else. And no, you're right. This year, especially too, at this point, when for all these guys, that age range, 20, 21, 22, 23, it can be make or break for a lot of guys. And, all of these guys who are holding out right now, and I mean, rightfully so, are big parts of their team and have taken big steps. And so,
right,
I'm with you 100%. The amount of, RFAs in general at this point, and then how talented this pool actually is, I don't think it's something that's been seen for a while. Yeah, I agree with you.
And I just wonder if this is going to become the norm going forward.
Well, like we always say, 8 million is the new 6 million.
That's true. That's true, man. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember
8 years is the new bridge deal.
Well, yeah. Well, that's I remember 5, 6 years ago. I remember if you got over 6 million, automatically it was an overpayment. And now, guys. And now guys like Ekman Larson takes 8.5 million, and that's a good deal. It's crazy how things change.
I don't understand it. I mean, I do. But it's still, I have my hard time wrapping my head around it, because I know that sometimes when you look at these things and you're just holy crap, but then you have to step, you step back and you start looking at, percentage of cap. It doesn't seem so wild anymore.
Yeah.
I had a question from our friend Ken Dizzle88 on the Twitter machine. She wants to know if the Joes stay together.
I think they have to.
I think they do too. I don't think they have to, but I think that Peter DeBoer, from what we've seen of him as a coach over the years that he's been here, what's got to be going on his 4th year now?
This is year number 4, yeah. Which is the last year of his contract, by the way.
Ooh, interesting. Drama noise.
Warm up that seat.
I don't think Peter DeBoer is going anywhere, but Peter DeBoer seems really married to his pairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the top line is going to be some combination of Jumbo, Pavs, and somebody, probably Evander Kane.
I would hope.
Couture and Hurdle are probably going to be married at the hip.
Yeah. See, and a lot of people are saying Timo Meier for that spot, but honestly, I think you have to go with Kevin Labanc there. You kind of get that. I mean, you think Labanc, he kind of established himself as a passer last year, and then you've got Couture and Hurdle, who both like to shoot the puck. I mean, to me, it seems like a perfect marriage.
Yeah. And then you would have to go, I think it gets murky when you get down to the 3rd and 4th line. I don't think there's an established pair there, but I think there will be by let's say the 20 game point. I think you'll have an established combo. And then it seems like, they kind of just interchange guys with those pairs. So yeah, I can't see the Joes not being together. I think that based on where both Jumbo and Pavelski are at in their careers, I don't think that I think that without each other, and Pavs did have a good season last year without Jumbo for the most part, but I feel like they're play style really complements each other really well. I don't know why you would mess with it.
Yeah, exactly. And, like you said, Pavelski, both years, last year and 2 years ago that Thornton had an injury, Pavelski still had good seasons, albeit, there were more assists than goals. And, my perspective on the whole thing is like, if you're getting a lot of assists, it means that somebody else is scoring goals. Right. And with that, I'm okay. And I mean, if honestly, like if Joe Pavelski has another goal year where maybe it's only 20 goals, but he's got close to 50 assists, like I'm not really going to complain about that.
But someone's got to shoot on that line.
But exactly. And that's where, that's where Evander Kane comes in, obviously. Or maybe if you put Joe Thornton back on that line, maybe Pavelski shifts back to, a 30-30 guy versus a 20-30
guy deflecting Brent Burns clap bombs.
See, but that's the other thing that kind of bothers me too about pairs and lines and the Joes is like, as much as I am a Joe Pavelski guy, I've made it very clear that I'm a Joe Pavelski guy, but in my eyes, he doesn't shoot the puck as much as he should. And I feel like when he wasn't on a line with Joe Thornton, I feel like he was shooting more. And I could be wrong. I could be just saying that because it's what I want my brain to think. But I feel like he was shooting more without Joe Thornton. And, it's nice that he can
shooting more, or is he just deflecting a lot of pucks? I don't know. Like, because that's his bread and butter. It seems like he a lot of his goals are deflections. Right.
But I mean, deflections, I mean, you think like with how often teams just sort of clog up the slot, really. I mean, I just wish he would take more shots in general. I mean, he's got a very underrated shot, even a really good slap shot. I mean, you could get him kind of between the point and the faceoff dot and just let him shoot it, and I would like to see that more because, it's not a guarantee that, you get your stick on a puck for a deflection, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you can at least get a shot on goal with a slapper or a wrister.
Yeah.
And Puck Guy says too, Jumbo was shooting more as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. It'll be interesting to see. I think, I think that those are the pairs I think they're married to. I think the third line is where it gets a little bit dicey. You're probably talking Chris Tierney and Timo Meier at that point because unless, it depends because LeBanc kind of just shifts up and down. Of course, Melker Karlsson's the wild card in this whole situation.
I knew that's where you were going. I was gonna say, how many games into the season does he start on a line with Joe and Joe?
The second things go wrong. The second things go wrong. Melker Karlsson, first line Melker Karlsson will remake an appearance. It's going to be interesting though because I feel like Timo Meier, if he has a season like he has last year, it's going to be hard to justify keeping him on the third line, or at least the third line will have to see more ice.
That's kind of like if you're a fan of a divisional opponent to the Sharks, that's something that kind of worries me. I mean, Timo Meier got 20 goals playing third line and, sometimes on the second power play unit. Like it kind of makes you wonder if he's in the top 6 and on the top power play unit. Like if you're a fan of the Kings or the Golden Knights or the Calgary Flames, you watch out for Timo Meier. Like that's all I'm going to say, because you get him in that top role, and who knows, maybe he is a fit with Couture and Hurdle. I don't know, but I think we're going to see big things from Timo Meier, whether it's with Couture or Joe Thornton or Chris Tierney. I feel like Timo Meier is the days of throwing the puck at the corner glass and jumping guys after the whistle are long gone. I think he's a totally different player.
AHL Timo Meier is definitely long gone for sure. But no, I like I really like. I was a little bit sour on Timo Meier at the start of last season, and I'm glad that he kind of proved me wrong. I don't know. I'd be curious to see, who's going to be the bottom 6, in my opinion, that's where a lot of the intrigue is going into camp. I think obviously what the Barracuda is going to do, obviously they don't have an official ECHL affiliate as far as I know. I know the Rush were mentioned, but I think that the assumption was there just based on the fact that, well, if Minnesota went from the Rush to the Americans, then obviously San Jose would go to the Rush, but I haven't seen anything official on that front on the digging I did. So I don't know, like that's the other intriguing thing is like, where are all these kids in the AHL going to go? Because that's a crowded bench. I mean, yes, some of these guys are going back to junior for sure. It's still a crowded bench. I know Kevin's working on something about the Barracuda, and I'm sure that's a big part of it. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would imagine like that's got to be part of it, because just based on conversations that we've had about this, I'm not sure what's going to happen down there, and I think that's where the intrigue is. I think the top six really, who's going to play with Couture? Is it LeBanc or Meyer? But aside from that, it's the bottom six. It's the Barracuda. That's where the intrigue is going to be for me this camp.
Could we see, I mean, off the top of my head, I don't really, know for certain, but if we, obviously some of the new Barracuda guys coming in, they're going to, they're not from North America. Could we see them get loaned to a team in their home country?
Oh, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point, because they're just not going to have enough, unless if they're just going to, I don't know how many players an AHL team can carry officially once the season starts. Like I'm ignorant to those kind of nitty gritty rules in the AHL. I don't know how many players they can carry. I don't know how many healthy scratches they can have. But one imagines it can't be, it's an affiliate, but I mean, it's still a league, right? Like it has to have its own rules when it comes to that kind of stuff, you would imagine. But again, I don't know.
I'm trying to look on Cap Friendly and like see if I can count how many players the Barracuda may have, and it's like 1, 2. I'm gonna count this really quick. Go ahead and
I mean, but the problem is that's not even including guys that are just on AHL deals there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are guys that are under NHL contract on two ways or whatever. I'm not sure, but I'll let you count that. I mean, obviously, the bottom six, I think we've talked about this all summer. I think that Dylan Gambrell's going to get a real look at that fourth line center. But I think he's going to have, with Swimella there, I think that's going to be an interesting thing. And I don't, without watching either of them play, obviously they haven't played any games yet and the rookie tournament or anything else, but I don't really have like a favorite here. I think Gambrell has the tools to be there, but I wouldn't be upset if Gambrell has to, refine his game a little in the AHL and it's Swimella that comes up, or vice versa. I'm not really too, for a rooting interest. I don't really have one in this case, but I would like to see it. I
mean, it is really tough. I think they're both, honestly, I think they're both evenly matched. And I think whoever it comes down to, I think the Sharks will be getting a good 4C regardless, but it's going to be a tough battle. It's honestly, this preseason, I honestly don't want to see a whole lot of Joe Thornton and Logan Couture. Like, I would like to see a majority of the Sharks preseason games with Gambrell and Suomela as the 1-2, just really put your eggs in the youth basket.
So I can't see Joe Thornton playing more than a game or two.
Like, if he plays more than one, I would be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, he says he's healthy. I mean, I think that we should talk about that. Obviously, Joe Thornton coming out saying that he's perfectly ready to go. And I have no reason to disbelieve him, but I still can't imagine that he's going to do much in the preseason. I don't know why you would, throw him out there against, against some of these guys that are going to be looking to make a name for themselves on their teams. You don't want to subject Joe Thornton to that, but let Hurdle deal with that.
That's beneath him.
Right.
Just counting Cap Friendly, the Barracuda are and I didn't count, forwards, defensemen. I just counted names. The Barracuda have 22 names based on Cap Friendly, and that's, like you said, not including AHL only deals, which John McCarthy is definitely an AHL only deal.
Correct.
I mean, I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. I'm sure one will fall into it at some point, but it's going to be a tight squeeze. You're going to see healthy scratches. You're going to see they're going to have to get really creative.
I think but it's good though, because I think for one, it gives us something to talk about, which is always great. I don't know. I feel like, this is going to be one of the more, like, to me, I'm fascinated by this. Like, I'm completely fascinated by what the Sharks bottom six is going to look like when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's it's interesting if you're a Sharks fan. I mean, obviously, I think the top 6 is set in stone, but
I agree.
The one thing that I always like about preseason is, you get to see the bottom 6. You get to see a bunch of different guys. You get to see, guys from the Barracuda, guys who are in junior. You get to you get to see them. You get to see them against some NHL caliber players. And it's always fun to watch. It's always fun to see who can do what. And I kind of want to talk about Kevin Labanc a little bit more. And
Okay.
I've seen a lot of people, saying, he's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is a guy, and I'm going to, piggyback off of Dave B. Pilot here. He put up 40 points in limited minutes last season. Like, that's not a guy who needs to prove it. That's a guy who has proved it. And, I've even seen people say that Labanc should start with the Barracuda. Like, I mean,
for one, he can't.
Right. That's the thing. It's like waivers is a hell of a drug, and the first team that's eligible to claim him would. And I'm not saying this to like attack anybody. I'm more just curious as to what it is about him that's just not liked. You know what I mean?
I think goals. People want goals. Goals are always going to be more. I mean, look at how long. And I'm not trying to attack anybody in the chat or anybody listening to this. But how long did we, as fans, not all of us, but maybe a vocal minority, how long did we attack Joe Thornton for putting up so many points but not scoring any damn goals? It's the same thing, is it not?
I mean, yeah, that's true, and I mean it all depends on it all depends on how you view the situation, because there are a lot of people who say I want goals, and absolutely, goals are important. But if you think about it from like a team perspective, like, and I kind of what I said earlier with Joe Pavelski, but if you put up 50 assists, you're doing fine in my eyes.
Right. I mean, 40 points is nothing to scoff. There's like, here's the thing. I mean, obviously, look at everyone. It's unrealistic to expect everyone that you put into the lineup, regardless whether they play in the bottom 6 or top 6. I mean, obviously, you want your top 6 guys to put up big points. Kevin Labanc puts up points. So I don't understand, like, other than, yes, okay, we'd like to see more goals, but assists are important too. And line chemistry is important. And, yeah, you need to score goals, but you also need someone to pass you the puck so you can score those goals. And Kevin Labanc has done that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I really have trouble with the Labanc criticism, and I'm kind of guilty. I'm guilty of it too, because I kind of got on him last year too. And then you look back and you're like, holy crap, the guy had 40 points. Like, everybody can't, in an ideal world, like, everyone would score all the goals together, and you'd have just, 20 goal scorers across your entire team. It's not going to happen.
I truly think, like, kind of going back to line combinations, I think if you put Labanc with Couture and Hertl, I would not be surprised if both those guys hit 30 goals this year.
Right. I think that, and I feel like with the way Labanc bounced around, I mean, if I'm Chris Tierney looking at my new contract, thank you, Kevin Labanc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Timo Meier.
Thank you, Timo Meier.
Thank you, Mikhail Bodker's 4-game goal streak.
Right. Thank you, Mikhail Bodker. You're scoring for, just enough goals for some jersey purchasing.
Well, we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that. Okay. I don't know. Like, I would be interested, like, I don't know, vamp for me here, because I want to see something. I want to see how many primary assists Kevin Labanc had, because I think that's important.
Jessica says in the chat too, Labanc got really pass happy, but his assists were A1, and they were, and that's, like I said, like, assists. And yes, Rob, I would like to see Labanc be more of a sniper too. I think we all would, but it's tough because, you can't have, not everybody can score goals or as many goals as they would like. I mean, if everybody on the Sharks had 20 goals, I don't think it would be interesting to watch, because I think you would just get, guys who are just flinging the puck on the net and no real, cycle or passing plays or anything like that. And there's definitely two schools of thoughts. On one hand, a guy can have a 70-point year, let's just say hypothetically, but let's say 50 of those are assists, and it's like, well, he only got 20 goals. I would like to see him hit 30, and that's absolutely fine. But there's another school of thought where it's like, wow, he got 70 points, and assists, they're not goals, but they contribute to goals. And like I said with Joe Pavelski, if you've got a bunch of assists, it generally means somebody else is scoring. And really, if you think about it from like a team perspective, I mean, that's really all you want, is the team as a whole to be scoring. And I definitely understand where a lot of you guys are coming from. I mean, it's the same thing with Joe Thornton, and I'm guilty of it too, and even Brent Burns as well. Like if you have the shot, take it, obviously, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with assists either.
Yeah, I'm coming up with my browser's being a douche, but I will find this answer and I will have it next show.
You vamp, I will look for it. Tag out.
All right. I mean, yeah, like to bounce on, I don't know. I don't like the guys. I think that if you're looking at kind of like questionable players, like as far as the Sharks go, I don't think Kevin Labanc should be on that list. I think you're looking more at guys like, as much as it pains me to say it, you're looking at guys like Jonas Donskoy. You're looking at guys like Melker Karlsson. These are the players I think you're looking at, guys like Barclay Goodrow. I don't think Kevin Labanc's the guy that, like, on the list of Sharks players, you're like, ooh, I'm kind of concerned about this, this point production. Kevin Labanc shouldn't be on this list. Like, I just think it's that simple.
No, I agree with you, and it's. I'm glad you said. I mean, Melker Karlsson is a kind of a different story because he's the
Swiss Army knife.
Yes, he's the savior. But I'm glad that you said Jonas Donskoy because and rightfully so. A lot of people are endeared to Jonas Donskoy. I mean, he scored that big goal 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. Jeez, that was a long time ago. And
the guy he's had a motor that doesn't stop. Like. He's
absolutely
always a pain in the ass on the ice, and I love that.
Yeah, and he's always he's put up some good showings, but in that same token, there have definitely been some times where there is nothing to be desired about his game. And I know he's been injured a lot, but that kind of plays into it. You have to, whether it's awareness or whether it's physical fitness, you have to, you can't afford to be constantly getting hurt,
right?
It's all about staying healthy. And I mean, to start the year, sure, Labanc was kind of in a weird spot. He's taking a lot of penalties, this, that, and the other. But, Donskoy is a guy who, in my eyes, struggled with consistency even more than Labanc has. I mean, Donskoy, and I hate to even make this comparison, to be honest with you, but he's kind of, in my eyes, he's going the way of a Matt Nieto, who he got time on the top line. He got time on the second line, and he didn't do a whole lot with it, save for a couple spurts of, exciting action.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then, like I said, I hate to even make that comparison, but that's just kind of how I interpret it, at least last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they're very different players too, though. Like,
mm-hmm.
I agree with what you're saying. I think like maybe the contrast is a little bit off because I feel like they play completely different games. But like Donskoy's a guy, like, here's the thing when it comes to players like this, right? Like Donskoy's a guy who I think could stay in the NHL and have a very long NHL career.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
But is he going to be able to do that on the Sharks with so many people nipping at his heels? Is he going to be able to maintain that top six role with guys like Blichfeld, for example, waiting, or Balcers waiting in the wings, right?
What about Hall Bigowatz even?
Sure. I mean, I think Balcers, I didn't mean Blichfeld, I meant Balcers was the player I meant to mention.
Sure.
This is a guy who should be in the NHL sooner than later, I think. If all the if what we've seen from him last season continues this season, and his game continues to improve, this guy should be an NHLer. Obviously, these spots have to come from somewhere. Is Donskoy going to be able to keep that spot? Because can Donskoy? I feel like when he's been in the doghouse and he's moved down lines, into the bottom six, he hasn't been as useful. Whereas I feel like a guy like Balcers, if he can get into that top six, he might not let it go.
Yeah, I like the point that you make where, it's same thing with the Barracuda. There are a lot of guys who are going to be coming in, and, guys, even guys like, Joe Pavelski, Chris Tierney, Malcolm Karlsson, Barclay Goodrow, like you said, these are guys who are going to have to think about what's coming and kind of prepare for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think Donskoy has 1 year left on his deal. I think Joe Pavelski's on the last year of his contract.
Yeah. Pavelski and Donskoy are both pending UFAs.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because I think, Donskoy, I feel like through no fault of his own, could just get pushed by a younger player. And this is the NHL. If you're going to have half your roster making $8 million a year, this is where the sacrifices are going to have to be made, right? You're going to have to, these guys in the middle are the ones that are going to get pinched.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Donskoys and the as sad as it may be for some people, the Justin Brauns of the world. These are the guys, the Brendan Dillons, these are the guys that are going to get pinched going forward. Because if they can find someone cheaper who can do similar things, that's what's going to happen. These are the guys that are going to move in and take their spots, because they're cheaper. There's cost certainty in their contracts for the time being. And you've seen this with, I'm not saying the Sharks are cup contenders, but you've seen this with cup contenders where they've just kind of bottom filled from their farm pool. The Jake Gensels, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even 3 years ago when the Penguins won the Cup, I mean, I don't think Rust and Sherry really made an impact in the regular season at all. And then come playoff time, they were, difference makers in a lot of games, especially Brian Rust.
Right.
And, I think teams are starting to move that direction, where you have, you've got your big dogs up top, obviously, like you said, making $8 million a season. And then obviously, you're going to have to fill in from the bottom. And it's kind of, it's a very, I don't know the word to use, but it reminds me kind of like the Moneyball kind of method, where you have these guys plug into your bottom six who are quote unquote prospects. And then when they show off, you just trade them. And I mean, we've seen Chicago do that. I mean, they had to trade Panarin and Brandon Saad and, even Dustin Byfuglien so many years ago. So it's, that's sort of where the league is going.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And obviously, with the talk of the Barracuda and the intriguing thing there, the Barracuda just got a whole lot cheaper to watch.
Yeah,
for us that are
before
able to be there.
Before we transition to that, I just want to say I didn't find anything pertaining to primary points. It's a lot harder than you might think to find.
Yeah, I'll find it.
But
I'll tweet it.
But of which, I mean, take with this what you will, but of LeBank's 40 points this year, 23 of them were 5v5.
There you go. That's important.
That's decent, because I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not an NHL player, but it's definitely easy to score points on the power play, and I think,
unless
where you really, of course, but where you really should be looking is at 5 versus 5, because that's where most of the game is played.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, that's important. I'll find out the primary list and I'll tweet it out, and then we'll decide whether our long defense of Kevin LeBanc is validated. I think it's validated regardless. But I mean, obviously, primary assists I have a little more faith in than was Kevin LeBanc a healthy scratch ever last season? I don't recall. It doesn't stand. If he was, it didn't stand out.
Do you remember last year this time when we thought LeBanc should start with the Barracuda, and then he opened the season with 2 goals in the first game?
Yeah, we're idiots. I don't know. But I don't know. But yeah, so the Barracuda just got cheaper to watch. The AHL released a new platform. the price is amazing, and I hope that this trickles down to some of the other minor leagues, because if you watched the Barracuda on the old platform, I'm not saying that the visuals are going to be all that much better. I think that obviously you're limited to the technology in the arenas, but the ability to not be stuck on my computer and watch a Barracuda game is pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
And the price. I mean, obviously the price can't be beat.
Yeah, especially like I was gonna say, at that price point, like it's impossible to beat at that price point. I mean, how much was AHL Live last year? Like $300? Something.
If
really
you wanted
ridiculous?
if you wanted like everything, it was like $300. It's 80 US this year to watch everything. You know, and I think it's only if you want to just watch just the Barracuda, I think it's 60 just to watch the Barracuda home and away.
That's fantastic. And that's, you know, good on the AHL for kind of, you know, realizing what, you know, their market and obviously their, you know, their potential customers, the AHL really, I think, did the right thing. It's become a more popular league in the last few years. I mean, with how many guys come in and make an impact right away. And then obviously you've got a bunch of different things to sort of get people into the seats. You know, teddy bear toss comes to mind, you know, special jerseys come to mind. You know, the AHL is slowly becoming a more popular league. And I think this was the right time to severely discount your viewing packages. Yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely getting my package all squared away as soon as I make sure that the income's flowing in again. Just being laid off at the moment in time, that's going to be over in a week. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to definitely being able to do better coverage of the Barracuda than I think we were able to do last year. I mean, you and Kevin killed it. I mean, I kind of just stood here and, you know, asked the right questions, but
we did okay.
I thought we did okay. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, being like having more input in those conversations. And I don't want to I think the one thing I wrote is like, we're not going to make any promises about like, our Barracuda coverage will obviously be better this year, but I'm not going to make any promises right now as to what that means. I feel like we're really bad with promises of late.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I'm definitely we're going to do better coverage of the Barracuda this year. What that coverage is going to look like, I don't know yet, but it's going to be better and it's going to be awesome. You know, I'm not going to come out and say, oh yeah, you know, Barracuda after dark after every game. The hell with that. There's 3 of us. That crap's not happening. Obviously, and on nights where the Sharks and the Barracuda are playing, the Sharks are going to win that war. Sorry, guys. And there's just some nights where I can't stay up all night and watch, you know, hockey every night of the week because I do live in the Eastern time zone and I have to sleep. But
that's the problem that I've been having too, kind of, is like, I mean, obviously I live in the Pacific time zone, you know, West Coast is best coast, but you know, like KHL season started this week and my team's games are at 7 a.m. and it's man, that's rough. I haven't got up for a single one. But
I was going to say, that's dedication, man, because I don't get up at 7 a.m.
No, I get the notifications, you know, and it's fine. It's whatever. But at the same time, I'm like you. Like, I really would like to watch a game, but it's just like 7 a.m. is too early for me, especially like, you know, especially being a college student, like staying up late is just a normal at this point.
Hard. It's rough, man. It's rough. But yeah, so I mean, obviously, you know, I think the price can't be beat. I think if you have the disposable income and you're interested, I mean, I honestly obviously the Sharks only package is just, or the Barracuda only package, sorry, is really reasonably priced. But for that extra, $20 to go, or $20 to go to the full league, like, you know, there's a lot of cool prospects that are going to be in the AHL on other teams. Like, you know, even if you just tune in for 10 or 15 minutes, I mean, it's just, you know, some of these guys, it's good to see what's coming, not just with the Barracuda, but with the, you know, with some of the other teams too. I think like there's going to be some interesting players on the defending champion Marlies. There's going to be, you know, I think that another farm team, like off the top of my head, you know, that's going to be interesting to watch, I think, is probably, you know, Buffalo. I think Buffalo has an interesting team. It's going to have an interesting farm team to watch. You know, there's some other teams too that are, you know, some teams have really good farm teams that are actually really good NHL teams too. So there's definitely going to be some players worth watching. And I think if you're that hardcore about it and you have the disposable income, I mean, I completely suggest that. I'm definitely going to be, checking out some Barracuda games, but I'll probably check out some other games too.
Yeah, and kind of just going on to that too. I think there are other AHL teams. Like I think, I still think there is more to see from the Stockton Heat. I think they got a lot of good pieces there. Same thing San Diego. I think San Diego will be really interesting to see. Tucson, obviously. I mean,
yes, Arizona for sure. Yeah, Arizona's marking for sure.
Like it's, I think North American hockey, for the most part, I would say is in a good spot.
I think so. I mean, and like the number, I think the number that was spit out was, I think almost 80% of guys, guys in the NHL have come through the AHL at some point, played in the AHL at some point. So that's pretty high number.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't obviously have, prior stats to that, but I'm almost willing to bet that, it's increased over the last little while.
All right. So we're nearing the end of our show because we've gone over an hour because we always do. And I'm just,
of course,
done trying to be short. We're just going to go long forever and people are just going to like it. Their dogs are going to die as they walk in the heat until the heat goes away. Rob asked us to do a quick hit on the Metro. I don't know if we really talked the Metro last time we were on, but I figured what the hell we could give it a quick go over. I don't even remember who's in the Metro.
That's my struggle. Is I always
get the Metro and Atlantic mixed up because their divisions are weird.
Well, and if I remember correctly, some of the teams in the Metro used to be in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I feel like it's a thing.
So
why do I not know who's in the Metro? Like, what's wrong with me today?
Oh, wait, okay, hold on.
I have this.
Okay, you got it. Go for it.
I have the. All right, so I know some of the teams that are in there, but I always screw up some teams. Okay, so let's start from the bottom to the top based on last year's point standings. At the bottom is the New York Rangers. More of the same?
New York Rangers, yeah, I think it's going to be more of the same just because they got rid of a lot of their good pieces, but they also retained some good pieces. So I think they'll probably stay where they're at. Maybe shift up a spot, but I don't think they're well.
It's so hard.
It's hard just because I'm generally down with the Rangers roster. So yeah, I don't know. I'll say fourth place. Leave it open.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard because I don't know what some of these other teams are going to be, right? Is New Jersey going to be as good as they were again? I'm not sure. What's Carolina going to be? I'm not 100% sure. The Islanders, I think the Islanders are going to go in the season with a huge chip on their shoulder, and that might just be enough to, it's hard because the NHL, right? Like, I just feel like I don't think the Islanders, although I don't know who's in net. Who's playing in net for the Islanders this year?
Robin Lehner.
Oh, they're screwed. All right, they're done. I don't know. I think the Rangers are definitely not a playoff team. I don't know. I think they're just there. They're kind of, they're kind of in their rebuild a little bit. I just don't think that nothing on the Rangers currently scares me. I don't think. I feel like Henrik Lundqvist proved last year he can't do it alone. Because I thought he played pretty well last year, and just and there they sit at the bottom. So Henrik Lundqvist can't do it alone, and I just feel like it's going to be just probably more of the same for the Rangers the next year. I feel like they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to be dead last, but being in the bottom three in the division wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I think the Metro is. I think the Metro is going to be interesting, just because a lot of those teams are in it. It's tough. Like the Rangers and the Flyers, and honestly, even the Hurricanes. Like I could see them, challenge for a wild card spot, but I could also see them, slide to the basement. And I think you look at the Metro. I think you've got Pittsburgh, Washington, and the Blue Jackets are your top dogs there. And then beyond that, it's draw a name out of the hat, you know?
Yeah, Nick asked earlier or Mike, sorry, asked earlier if Ovechkin stopped drinking yet. I don't think Ovechkin ever stops drinking, so I don't think it's going to be a factor.
That's his secret.
All right, that's a secret. My secret.
If you want to score 50 goals a season, here's what you do.
You find something, you keg stand, you go play.
Hey, big news. The keeper of the cup is not allowing keg stands with the Stanley Cup anymore.
Apparently got banged up. I mean, it's the NHL. We're not allowed to have fun. I mean, I understand. Like, you want to take care of the cup, and I don't know. It's just the NHL, man. The NHL is the NHL. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so that would bring us to the New York Islanders, and with Robin Lehner in net, that's just a recipe for disaster. I don't think Robin Lehner is the right guy to go in there. I don't like, in contrast, you look at what Buffalo did, and there's not really a lot to get excited, I think, in Buffalo's crease either, with Carter Hutton and who's the other gentleman?
It's Linus Ullmark? No. That's
we're the worst. Like, this is what happens when we just try and hit something.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like Carter Hutton, just his demeanor, I feel like is at a better place for the Sabres, because he's not like Leonard's a really fiery guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, if
like
you
I would classify Lehner as scary.
Yeah, Robin Lehner scares the crap out of me. And I've seen him play with my own eyes. He scares the crap out of me. Whereas I feel like a team, if you're a younger team, maybe that's not the greatest goalie to have. I feel like, this is a team that I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to try and do things, but man, I don't know. Robin Lehner, A, can he stay healthy? B, can he keep his cool?
Well, and you know what? I think Robin Lehner, I think he is going to be the difference. I think he's going to be the difference for the Islanders, because, this past year they were one of the top scoring teams in the league. Now, granted, they don't have John Tavares anymore, but doesn't change the fact that they still score a lot of goals. And, if they can get the defense to tighten up, and if they can get Robin Lehner to stop some pucks, it's the same kind of thing as the Rangers and the Hurricanes. They might challenge.
The problem there is I just think it's a lot of, I love Matt Barzal. I worry that he's going to get too much pressure too soon. And it'll be interesting to see, and plus, sophomore slump is still a thing in the league that happens to players, unfortunately. I get concerned.
Don't you dare talk about Matt Barzal like that.
All right. I'll move on then. The Carolina Hurricanes. I am less enamored with this team than I've been in a long time. And I just feel like it's just weird ownership, trying to do weird things. And it just maybe...
We talking about the Hurricanes?
Yes.
Ah, yes. Drew Weber's Hurricanes.
Right. Maybe we'll get you on before the season starts. I don't know. I just... Look, I think... I like Scott Darling. I think that he's better than he was last year. I don't know. It's just such a tough division, though. Like... are they going to move up? I mean, there's some decent... look, they made some good moves, but I don't know if it's enough to really make a dent in this division, but they've struggled to make a dent in since they won the cup in, 2006?
Yeah. And since then, I think they've been to the playoffs once.
Right. Like, I don't...
As a fan, that would be brutal.
Yeah, this was an 83-point team last year. Not terrible, but I don't know. I just don't know what to make of them.
They're kind of like the Islanders, where like scoring goals isn't really the problem. It's more of stopping them.
Right.
But the difference between the Islanders and the Hurricanes is the Hurricanes defense is stacked.
Yes.
And it's solely goaltending that's the question. Now, Could you imagine if Mr. Hartford Whaler himself can swing a guy like Artemi Panarin to have a true number one offensive stud? Maybe there's some April meaningful games for them.
Does Chicago not have a player that they need to shed salary from?
Give DeBrincat a call in 2 years.
I don't know. I mean, it's just such a tough division where I think like the top of it is so locked in that it's going to be hard for, I mean, basically in my opinion, all these teams are fighting for the wild card spot because I don't think you're unseating the Capitals. I don't think you're unseating the Penguins, and I don't think you're upseating the Blue Jackets, which basically leaves the wild card spot. Maybe 2 wild card spots if the Atlantic is an absolute disaster.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still, I mean, that's wishful thinking. Can the Hurricanes go for the wild card spot? Yeah, I just think a lot has to go right, and the Atlantic division has to be just absolute tire fire. It's got to be, and it could happen, right? You got Boston, Tampa, Toronto, and then everything else just goes to hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, like we alluded to earlier, Ottawa, shambles, Detroit, shambles, Montreal, shambles, Buffalo pulling themselves out of the shambles, but they're still not quite there. So
I'll believe it's at the point where I believe it when I see it, right? Like there's been teams in the league where I'm just like, I can't do it. Carolina, Arizona, Buffalo. Like I need to see something, you can like this team's on paper all you like, but until it translates on ice,
no question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
Yeah.
At Arizona Coyotes.
Oh man. All right. So moving on now, I guess that brings us to what? The Devils.
Worse.
Yeah. I there's some stuff that happened there that just shouldn't. I love Taylor Hall though, man.
I love Taylor Hall.
There's so much. There's so much on this team that I like, and then there's just so much on this team that I question.
I mean, the way that I look at it is, they bring in Pat Maroon and they bring in Michael Grabner, and it didn't really help their team at all. Now they lose both of those guys and don't replace them. So in my mind, best case scenario, they're exactly where they were. And even then, there's no guarantee that that's good enough for a playoff spot.
Right. Yeah. No, because another one of these teams could come up and just pop them off,
Yeah.
Which brings us to obviously the Blue Jackets. I think the Blue Jackets are firmly entrenched. Although they weren't, they got knocked to the 4th seed last year by Philadelphia at the end of the season, which was kind of a surprise. But the Blue Jackets are just too good not to be in the playoffs. The amount of things that would have to go wrong in Columbus for them to fall out, it doesn't seem possible.
They really if they just need to stop meeting the Stanley Cup champion in the first round, honestly. I don't know, even without the bread man though, I still think Columbus can do some damage, honestly. They're
built well enough.
They are built well, and hypothetically speaking, their young guys are going to get better, and if you're trading Artemi Panarin, you're getting king's ransom for him,
Absolutely.
Hello, Mikhail Sergachev and Yanni Gord.
But no, I just feel like Columbus is good. They're built the right way. Kekalainen just got a much deserved extension.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, there's just a lot to like in Columbus. I feel like this is a team that has all the tools to be there. I mean, look at look at that decor. Look at the goaltending. Look at the forwards. I mean, there's really nothing there to not like.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. If I had to nitpick one thing, it would be Nick Foligno, and it's just because he's not super consistent. Like he'll have a 70-point year, and then he'll have a 45-point year. Then he had a 68-point year. Then he had a 50-point year. I would one or the other would be nice, but yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Columbus is in a good spot. I think you look at a guy. You talk about guys who fly under the radar. What we were talking about earlier. Columbus still has Cam Atkinson, who has been good for 20+ goals his entire career. Not nearly talked about enough as he should. Now, is he like Panarin, where he's going to hit 80 points? Probably not. But should they lose? He could. I mean, if he's with Wenberg or PLD, it's very possible. But should they lose Panarin, even if they lose him for nothing, like you've said, that team is still loaded up.
And they have and their system's not terrible either. Like I feel like they
Absolutely.
have some good prospects waiting in the wings. Philadelphia would be next. Philadelphia is another interesting team I really like. Like I really like what Ron Hextall's done with this team. It's one of these teams where, okay, it looks good on paper, but it's got to translate on the ice.
Philadelphia is like Anaheim East. Like they've got a decent roster and they could be pretty good, but whenever I see them, I'm just like,
goaltending.
Yeah. I mean
goaltending's always like, for some reason, this team is just cursed in the crease.
I'm sorry to let all the listeners know, but Brian Elliott is not the answer.
Right.
Like, but you know what? Maybe, depending on how things go, maybe, they just say fire everybody and maybe Carter Hart gets the net.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, oh man, that'd be interesting. Yeah, they've got to do something. It's going to be interesting. I mean, they're going to be interesting to watch because this is a team that I feel like should have really forced their way into the conversation. Again, this is the team on the blue line that is just, deep. They've got a few contracts that I think are hindering them a little bit. But, I mean, overall, like this, I don't know. I just feel like the Flyers should be a better team at this point.
I'm not really thrilled with their blue line. I mean, obviously, they've got Ghost. They've got Provorov. But beyond that, I mean, it's, to me anyways, there's not really a whole lot to be desired there. I mean, Hag is decent, but I don't know. I feel like if they had one more really good defenseman, I think it's probably a different conversation.
They've got but they've got so many guys waiting. This is another team with guys waiting in the wings, and I feel like this is where the contracts get them, right? Because they just have some guys on just not great contracts that are probably holding other people out. Like this, I feel like their blue line depth is really good as far as their prospect pool goes. But some of these guys, have to meet up. They have to match the expectations, like Provorov did, for example.
Right.
And that hasn't happened here. I like Gustus Beer. I don't know, where are you at on Ghost? I like Ghost. I think Ghost is.
I think he's, defensively, you don't hear a lot about him, which is good. But in that same kind of way of talking about it, you don't hear about his defensive game the way you hear about Marc-Edouard Vlasic, where he's so good and underrated and the best in the world and this, that, and the other. But offensively, I think he's a stud, and I think he's, if Ghost is not on that team the last 2 years, they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're in trouble. I like Ghost. I've always been a Ghost fan. I just think, I think he's got a really good. Is he as elite as some people make him out to be? I don't think so. Like, I think that there is an element of overratedness when it comes to Ghost Bear, but I think he's really good. I don't think that makes him bad per se. I think he's really good still. Yes, I mean that's Philly. Moving on, obviously we're onto the Penguins now. The Penguins are obviously fine. There's not much to dislike about that team. I feel like
Penguins are more than fine. They are amazing.
They're still. This is a team that they have a great core of players. And if Matt Murray can stay healthy, they're fine. I mean, they're as big as a threat as they've always been. I think this Marc-Andre Fleury revisionist history is really amusing. But I get that when you win 2 Stanley Cups in a row, it's hard not to win again, so I kind of understand that reaction. But I really feel like Pittsburgh's they're still, if they're not the class of the league, they're really damn close to it.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. From top to bottom, they've got a really good lineup all the way through. Good goaltending, good defense, good forwards, good coach. I mean, I'm not really doing myself any favors for those who think I like the Penguins for some reason. But if you come up to me and you say, Hockey Jerk, show me a Stanley Cup team, I'm pointing at the Penguins. Like, they've got goal scoring, they've got defense, they've got goaltending. Like, there's nothing about that roster that I don't like, really. And even, okay, Jack Johnson, whatever. Like, he's still a serviceable defenseman. And, as the Penguins have shown the 2 years they won the Cup, you can never have too many of those.
Yeah, I mean, look at I was a big. I remember when the Sharks played the Penguins in the final, and I came on, like, was it Pucknology at that point still? I think I don't know, I don't remember, but it was whatever. It was Teal Town Pucknology, whatever. And I remember coming on and just ripping Schultz like a new one, just on how bad the Sharks were gonna skate around him and make him look like an idiot. And God, was I wrong?
Well, that's like I feel like we like Pittsburgh. I feel like has become the reclamation location for
right. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, like Justin Schultz, had a tough go in Edmonton, and then he goes to Pittsburgh and he's a stud.
Right.
Jamie Alexiak kind of was supposed to be this big prospect for Dallas, finds himself on the way out, and he played well in Pittsburgh, got himself a 3-year extension. Pittsburgh brings in Ron Hainsey, gets him a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Here comes Jack Johnson. Will it be more of the same? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm going to be very careful on my ripping of Jack Johnson until I see some hockey. Because I just feel like I don't want to do this to myself again. I think Jack Johnson's been incredibly overrated his entire career. But you know what? There's just some players that I just don't like, and I'm, in some cases I've just been really wrong. I think a great example of a defenseman that I despise horribly that I probably shouldn't is Jay Bouwmeester. I hate Jay Bouwmeester. I think Jay Bouwmeester sucks, but
is he good in the room?
Yeah, apparently.
good enough to go to the World Cup.
He's decent.
Well, that's the other thing.
I've never been huge, but I've never whenever he makes the I'm like all the people that on the East Coast where like Marc-Edouard Vlasic over Subban. Why? When Jay Bouwmeester makes the team on the stand, I'm like, Jay Bouwmeester, what the hell, Team Canada? And I'm wrong every time. So
and to wrap up the Penguins, they brought back Matt Cullen for another go of it, which that's one of the, because Drew Weber and I have had this conversation quite a bit, but I feel like when the Penguins beat the Sharks for their cup, I feel like that was supposed to be Matt Cullen's last go. And then he comes back and wins another one. And then he's like, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee in Minnesota. And then he's like, you know what? I really liked that Pittsburgh. I'm going to go back there.
Matt Cullen was the missing piece. And that leaves us obviously with the defending champion Washington Capitals. Again, I think Washington's going to be, they lost some pieces. Obviously, all cup teams do. But
did they really, though? I mean, who did they lose?
They lost, I don't know. Who did they lose? They lost somebody.
I don't think they lost anybody. They traded Brooks Orpik and then finagled the salary cap to bring him back.
That's true. Yeah, they did. Yeah, maybe.
But they got Kempney re-signed. They got John Carlson re-signed.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't really. But I worry about that Carlson contract, and I really don't like that Tom Wilson contract.
Oh, that Tom Wilson contract is deplorable.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. They probably didn't lose anybody, and that's just me just making assumptions without really looking at facts, and that's fine. But some of the contracts that came out of that cup winning team that makes me a little nervous going forward. But I still think for the immediate future, they're fine. They're primed to make another run. And they've got that Pittsburgh monkey off their back. So if they meet Pittsburgh in the playoffs again with that monkey off, I think that they're not going to grip their sticks as hard as they have in previous years with that monkey off the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely nice. They, like you said, they got that monkey off their back, like you said, and it's definitely a big thing. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if, say, they meet up again next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh comes back out on top.
Oh, I think I'm not saying that it's a sure thing. I just think from a mental standpoint.
Oh, yes, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's to the point where it's no longer like the older brother beating up on the younger brother. I think it'll be a much more interesting matchup to see. And then just like you're talking about the contracts. Honestly, I don't hate the Michael Kempney contract. Like, I thought he played really well with John Carlson.
Yeah, the Carlson contract I feel like is a lot, but I feel like this is a case of a player that I just don't watch enough.
8 is the new 6. I will say this.
8 is the new 6, yes.
Just to give you a little insight here. So one of my really good friends is actually a Washington Capitals fan. Mm-hmm. And for years, and I mean, I haven't known him very long, like 3 years maybe, but in all three of these,
you guys are friends, considering you're such a big Penguins fan.
we make it work. But but you know, in all the years that I've known him, like whenever we talk hockey, one of the things he always says is how overrated he thought John Carlson was, and he later modified that statement and basically said, you know, he was overrated for so many years, but now he's finally proved himself, kind of thing, and earned the contract. And so I think if the John Carlson from last year returns, then I think Caps are in a good spot. But if the supposedly overrated John Carlson, according to my friend, comes back, I don't know, it might be a different story.
It's 8 long years.
Well, 8 is the new 6.
8 is the new 6, indeed. Yeah, so I think, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the Metro. I think it's going to be an interesting division. I think it'll be one of the more interesting. I think the Metro and the Central are going to be the most interesting divisions in hockey. I think the Pacific's kind of interesting too, but not in the same vein, because I feel like the power is in the Metro and Central as far as the league goes. With, you know, I mean, obviously there's outliers. I think obviously Tampa's really good still, being in the Atlantic, but I think the rest of the Atlantic is still, you know, beyond Toronto, beyond Boston. I feel like the Atlantic's really, really soft. I feel like the Pacific is going to be interesting from a Sharks fan perspective, but I just, you know, would it surprise me if this is a year where the Central divisions make up the wild cards? Nope. Wouldn't surprise me in the least.
It's going to be interesting. I feel like with all the divisions, really, I feel like they're the big dogs kind of thing. I mean, you talked about the Metro and the Atlantic, but I mean, you know, Chicago, good Lord. In the Central, you know, Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis. The Pacific is probably, I don't know, San Jose, Arizona, Anaheim. I don't know, you know, but like everybody else is just sort of there, you know, and right. we've talked on this show before about how, you know, how parity in the league is kind of a myth, but I truly think this year that we are going to see that. I would not be surprised if we see, you know, some teams who have missed it the last little while make the playoffs, and vice versa. Some teams who household names miss. Like, could if the Anaheim Ducks that got swept by San Jose shows up this regular season, then they're going to be having an early summer. You know, I don't think that's a totally ridiculous thing to predict happening.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you know, going forward, I think when the season gets closer, I think we're going to go. I think we'll go more in depth, obviously, in the Pacific Division, do a Pacific, a more in depth Pacific preview for sure, because I think it's so interesting. Like, the Pacific fascinates me this year. Just fascinates me, because I think other than Vancouver and depending on what happens in Edmonton, but again, like I look at the Oilers and I go, this team still has Connor McDavid. Right?
Connor McDavid, who had 108 points last year and said he wants to score more.
Right. You know, you just need a few things to go right on a team like that. And I think that, you know, the defense is questionable. You know, I think Cam Talbot's going to rebound. I don't think Cam Talbot's going to be as terrible as he was last year, but the defense is and then if they don't get Nurse under contract right away, I mean, they're really just putting themselves in an unnecessary hole to start. But yeah, I can't, I don't know. I'm looking forward. I'm really excited about the season starting. I don't know if I'm more excited than in previous years, but I'm pretty damn excited, because I feel like there's just a lot to look forward to, as far as like, there's so many intriguing things this season coming up. And obviously we're going to continue to cover it going forward. You know, like I said, we're going to do more of a Pacific preview. I think, hopefully we can get into these rookie games a little bit. You know, there's a lot of stuff we want to do going forward. I'm not making any promises, because I make promises, we never keep them. So we're done there. But definitely there's going to be a lot to talk about going forward.
Yeah, and you know, I think too, this season, at least to start, will be intriguing, because I think about last year, and I would say for the most part, aside from the 6th defenseman, the roster was pretty much set. But you know, you come in this year, and like we alluded to, there's the potential for 4 bottom 6 spots to be up for grabs.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a tight race to see who gets those spots. I guarantee you it's going to come down to the last preseason game. And, you know, I, for one, am excited to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And then the intrigue continues when you get down to the Barracuda and try and figure out what they're going to do, and, you know, who they get to, you know, who gets left out from the Sharks, and then who gets pushed out, you know, by there. It's going to be fascinating, and I can't wait for it to really, really, really get going. All right. So I feel like we've probably gone long enough at this point, especially talking about the Metro. Sharks fans are like, cares about the Metro, Ian? What are you doing? But you know what? You guys ask, we deliver. That's how this thing works. So Rob, thanks for the question. Kendra, thanks for the question as well. For earlier in the show, always, you know, again, we love your questions. So if you have questions, throw them to me, DM them to me, because then I will less likely lose them. It just works better that way. It's better for my organization. If you tweet them at me, I get tweeted at a lot, and I retweet a lot of dumb stuff, and like I just, you know, I do a lot of silly stuff on Twitter, so sometimes things will get lost in the notification shuffle. DMing me is the best way to do it. If you don't follow me so I get your DMs. I'll follow you back. It's cool. I got you back. All right. So Hockey Jerk, where can we find you? And, you know, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Well, something that I want to say, I was doing some research when we were talking about the Metropolitan Division, and you're never going to guess whose draft pick the Flyers used to pick Shane Gostisbehere.
Oh, it's got to be ours then, right?
Absolutely, it was. And now this, we traded with Florida, then Florida traded with Philly, so it was a very convoluted way of exchanging draft picks. But so in giving up that draft pick that became Gostisbehere, the draft pick we got back, Matt Nieto. I hope you all are happy. And if you like to be brought down in a hockey related fashion more often, you can follow me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. You know, KHL season has started. I realize I'm probably in the minority in enjoying Russian hockey, but if you want to read my thoughts on a completely different league from the one you care about, you should definitely follow me. And then, you know, anytime we have a show, or, you know, I'm going to Rick Rude my way onto another podcast, you know, I definitely tweet it out. So you definitely want to be somebody said Barzell. I'm going to lose it. You know, that's the place to be, hockey_jerk on Twitter. And as always, I'm not a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
All right. I am Ian Reed. You can find me at Ian Blogs Hockey on the good old Twitter machine. You can find me on the Instagram machine on the same thing. I'm hoping to, I know it's right now, it's just a lot of pictures of my kids, which they're adorable. I mean, check that stuff out, because my kids are cute. And you'll be better for seeing all the zany antics that they do. But I'm looking forward to the OHL season starting. I'm probably going to get some game pictures from my phone, which isn't going to be great quality, but they'll be there anyway. So when you know, guys like Sasha Chmelevski come down, or you know, some Ryan Rickley kid, I don't know. Whenever that, you know,
he's okay from what I heard.
He's okay from what I hear. Whenever you know, those guys come to town, I'll definitely do my best to get some stuff from them up on the Instagram machine. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the content tonight and you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. Again, we appreciate all your looking in. Hit the notification so that you know when we go live, because sometimes, man, we decide we're going to do this like 10 minutes before we actually do it. So if you never want to miss a show, make sure you hit that notification bell. And if you want to catch the show after the fact, you can do so on YouTube on our channel, or you can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and a million other platforms. Just look for Teal Tinted Glasses on your preferred podcatcher, and you will definitely find us. You should also follow Kevin Lacey at Kevin Lacey 22, our missing in action but beloved third host, who will hopefully we will be able to work out a schedule that gets him back sitting in the seat. But aside from that, it's been great talking to you guys some hockey. Again, camp's open tomorrow, and it's only going to get more exciting as the month progresses, as we inch closer and closer to the regular season, where we will continue to be your awesome, not covering every game nonsense podcast that we've always been, talking about things like what's Nate Schmidt not saying, stuff like that. If you like that kind of stuff, this is the podcast for you. And a shout out to all our podcasting friends out there who should probably be also returning from vacation. Give me something to listen to, guys. I can't listen to myself. It's just narcissistic. All right, guys. Have a good night. See you later.